Good evening and welcome everybody. My name is Kevin Streeter. I'm the chair of the BCS Learning and Development Specialist Group, and alongside that I'm also a member of BCS Council and Trustee Board. So a number of different roles in BCS that I play. And I gave a talk end of December time at the the virtual festival of digital skills on Cpd, and it went down very well and had a lot of follow-up, and today's talk is basically that session and with a number of extensions to it. So I hope you find something in here that's going to be helpful for you. First of all, just say we are going to be recording the session and it will be available after tonight. If you have any questions, then please put them into the chat, and we'll be having a Q&A towards the end, and we'll get started. So first of all, just like to introduce you to the BCS Learning Development Specialist Group. Its specialist group is for those who are involved in the development, delivery or management of learning to IT and communications professionals and end users. So hopefully somewhere in there you might find something that you can relate to, but we're just interested in technology and learning as a specialist group, and that all its diverse different aspects. A little bit of background about the membership. So about 18% of our members in the group are people with end user skills training as their area of interest. About the same on IT professional skills, which things like project management, service management, project management. 16% very much in the technical skills domain, so very specific technical areas. About 16% involved in university education, higher education, or the education sector in general. And then about a third of our members are just generally interested in IT skills related topics. We do have a website for the group, and if you're interested in what we're talking about tonight or anything to do with the specialist group, then please do sign up and join the group, and you can find out how on the BCS website. And we also have an archive of all our past events for the last 2 years on BCS member groups YouTube channel. So please find your way there, and if you're interested in learning development, and there's a really good set of resources there to use. Quick advert for the book that we were involved with, the Technical Training Management book, available from the BCS bookshop, and it's a really useful guide for anyone that's involved in training in any respect. It talks about all aspects of training, from creating content, assessments, running training businesses. So if you're interested in learning development in general, then please take a look. And please do follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn, and we have a hashtag going this evening, and if I can just remember what that is, it's hashtag Cpd Good. So please use our @BCS L&D SG and Cpd Good, and you should find that in the chat as well. So I'm going to move on to what I'm going to talk about tonight. So I'm going to turn my camera off for a while and start talking about the subject tonight. So the first thing I'd like us to do is to see if we can do a poll, and I want to use a platform called Menti. So could you give this a go? We'll put it in the chat as well, but if you go to www.menti.com and enter the code 9545520, you should hopefully find a question. And okay, what the question there is to say, okay, I have a range of post-nominals. What does this set of post-nominals say about what my skill areas are? Okay, if you could try going to the poll, and Kevin, the links and the code are in the chat, and hopefully you can just enter some text. And I think Michelle, let me know if that's working okay. Okay, project management. Okay. RSI from typing them all, love that. Yes, management, certified IT professional, chartered IT professional. Yeah. Now we're starting to get a good picture here. So interesting that project management is standing out. So some of these clearly are helpful and some of these less so. It's quite clear I've got a management qualification and I've got an MBA. My first degree doesn't look like it's particularly helping, but the membership BCS probably is. So that's starting to build an interesting grid. So IT management, project management, computing. Yes, that's pretty much me. There's one in a FLPI, Fellow of the Learning and Performance Institute. I'm a learning professional as well. So FCIIS is Fellow of the Chartered Institute for Information Security. So what used to be IISP. So I work in the security field. I'm a computer scientist. I am a chartered manager and fellow of the Chartered Management Institute, fellow of the Learning Performance Institute, and a member of the IET. So it's saying my interests are computing, cybersecurity, and learning and development, and I'm a manager. And you can read that from post-nominals. These are the things that I've been collecting over the years. So just like to switch presentation back. Okay, so I've also started collecting digital credentials. So the next thing is, do these digital credentials add anything to the picture? So I've got a badge from APM, I've got Sphere Accredited Consultant, Credly Ambassador, Fellow of the LPI, Credly Client Advisory Board, and SEDMA Europe Board Member. Okay, does anyone want to add anything else? To the chart? You should be able to add an additional entry. So the extra thing that I've added from that is, if we go back to this slide, I've got an expertise in digital badging and in Sphere. so skills frameworks. So thank you for taking part in that. So who needs CPD? Really, anyone who is, slides keep jumping tonight. So who needs CPD? And anyone who is a member of a professional body, an institute, a professional membership association, should be undertaking continual professional development in some form. Anyone who is working within a sector that is formally regulated, such as solicitors. Anyone who wants to maintain their current competency. And I think that's a really important one for me, is when we're talking about CPD, it's thinking about what are you competent in, and are you currently competent in that field? And anyone who wants to demonstrate their compliance with professional ethical standards. A lot of the post-nominals we were just looking at are post-nominals that have ethical standards associated with them. So it's not just technical skills, management skills, project skills, it's also ethical skills and compliance and standards of behavior that are associated with professional development. So what are the benefits of CPD? Well, it keeps your knowledge and skills up to date. It maintains the professional standards of your qualifications and professional registration. So, for example, the Chartered IT Professional, CITP, you need to keep up to date, and you've got the Certificate of Current Competence. It can be very beneficial for career progression. So things like when I did my MBA, it was very much to help as I went into a more senior management position, and the MBA has been incredibly helpful for that. So it's been beneficial for career development. It can help employers ensure that they've got consistent standards across their organisation. And for employers, it can also help promote greater work engagement and commitment to job roles. So CPD is an all-round good thing to be doing. But at its core, CPD is really about getting to a level of competence that allows you to perform in a role. But more importantly, it's maintaining your level of competence. And a lot of good CPD is about making sure that you can build on what you already know and be able to develop yourself as the world changes, as new technology comes along, as new management thinking comes along. It allows you to continue in that world of keep maintaining your competence. It's also about supporting others. A lot of learning development is about helping others improve their knowledge and skills. That's either directly, if you're in a management position, you can help others develop, or you can work supporting other people who are trying to learn their own technical fields or professional fields. So something like CITP is a really good way of demonstrating that you've achieved a certain level of professionalism, you've reached a certain level of experience in the IT industry, and you can gain a lot towards CITP really from the education that you undertake, your experience, and you get validation of that through achieving your Certificate of Current Competence, and you then need to maintain that. So this is a model I wanted to share, and I found this in the Journal of In-Service Education, and it talks about different models of CPD, and I found it very helpful to think about the range of CPD that can be undertaken. The one that we know best really is probably the training model, which is about expert-led transfer of information, somebody presenting a session, transferring information about a particular field. That is from the field of transmission. It's transmitting information to you. The award-bearing model is about trying to achieve professional status. So if we go back to the post-nominals, I've reached chartered status level now in both IT with chartered IT professional and chartered manager. So I've got award-bearing professional chartership in 2 different domains that actually encompass what I do. And you have the deficit model, which is where you're really looking at gaps in performance, where you may be finding that you've got areas that you're not competent or not sufficiently competent in, and you need to address those specific skills gaps. So they're all types of CPD that are based on transmission. You're receiving information about a specific area and you're focused on a specific outcome. Then you get to the transitional CPD. This is where you're starting to engage more broadly and think about, okay, it's not just about qualification. It's not just about demonstrating that you've reached a certain academic level or you've reached a certain chartership level. You're now looking at how do you achieve competence in specific fields. So that might be going into a specific domain, and going back to the example, that could be cybersecurity. It could be learning development. It could be something specific. It may be something like ITIL or Prince project management, or some domain that is standards driven and demonstrating that you've achieved competence in that field. And you start moving into models that are much more around coaching and mentoring. And I think as you develop core skills, you then need to start thinking about how can you grow those skills through experience. And that's where a coaching or mentoring model becomes really useful in helping you develop your own professional practice. And communities of practice, it's one of the things about being part of the learning and development specialist group in BCS is it's about mutual sharing amongst peers. In this group, we try and get as many experts as we can from across the field of learning and development in IT. And we've talked about a whole range of issues and things that are important to learn about this domain. So those are sort of transitional. They're helping you to broaden your experience, to gain more exposure to a wider breadth of skills. And then the third stage is really the models that are about transformative approaches. Action research, you're doing critical inquiry, you're really developing new capabilities. And obviously the final dissertation of my MBA is a good example of that. It was an MBA with the Open University. It was very action research orientated, and it was about doing critical inquiry into applying what was 4 or 5 years of learning in my workplace to learn how to apply it and develop really strong new capabilities. That's a transformative model, and a fully transformative model. And what really good CPD is the effective integration of all of these. They all have a place. They all have a point in time where they're going to be relevant. If you're learning a new domain, you might go and look specifically at the training model or the award-bearing model. If you're trying to reach a certain level of experience, you might engage with a community of practice. If you really want to take it to a higher level of learning, then you probably want to engage in something like an action research model. So I think what I'm saying in the talk tonight is think about all of these models. The spectrum of CPD is really important. Say, okay, have I done something that is broadening my experience from the transitional? Is there something new I need to learn that I might need to do a course for? Do I need to think about how I'm applying skills? Because put them all together and you come up with a really good structure for CPD. So we're going to attempt a second poll, and if you go back to the Menti site, and I will just switch it over, and you should now have a second screen, which is what forms of CPD do you use the most often? So if you can just take a couple of minutes to share that, that would be great. Coaching, yeah, webinars, training, self-study. Yeah, so we've got quite a few there that are transfer, webinars with reflective learning, that's a good one. Personal reading, yep. Employer provided training, mentoring. This, yep, it's got some really good ones coming up here. We've got peer-to-peer, YouTube, webinar, professional networking, podcasts, yep, self-directed learning for hard skills, yep, self-developments, books, webinars, Google, Future Learn, Coursera, yeah, BCS membership, yeah, trying to help build self-guided learning for others, yeah. And then we've got experimenting and research. Experimenting is a really good approach. Brainstorming at the bar, yeah, like that one. Yeah, really good one there. Experimenting and practical application. These fall into this transitional model. Good CPD can be practical application. Yeah. Oh, nice to know somebody who reads the BCS magazine. You might have seen a few articles from me in there. Employer-led webinars and training, mentoring younger people, reading IT now. So yeah, lots of really good approaches to CPD in there. But I think what I'm seeing here is quite a lot of these are transferring. We've got some good examples here, like the peer-to-peer coaching, but things like action research has a really good part to play. I think Lunch and Learns, there's a good spread of CPD activities. They're all good CPD. But as I was just saying, I'll switch back to the slide deck. When you're thinking about them, have you got a good combination of transmission, transitional, and transformative? Because if you can mix those three, then you've really encompassing the full range of what CPD could be and could help you with. So, okay, just going to spend a bit of time looking at a good approach. So the plan, do, check, act cycle. If you've not come across this, then take a bit of time to have a look. It's a really just good approach to anything that involves continuous development, review. The planning stage is getting to a certain level of competency. What do you want to aim for? Do you want to be an expert in cybersecurity? Do you want to be an expert in agile development? What do you want to aim for? And then think about your path to get there. And that path could be any of those methods of CPD that we've just looked at. What works very well for a lot of people is a combination. So think about all the possible things that you can do to have a good path to achieve the development you want to aim for. I've very much taken the approach of I wanted to get to be a technical expert, and as I moved into management, I put much more of a focus on developing management skills, and then more recently I've spent more time focusing on learning how to be an expert in depth in learning development related to cybersecurity. There are very clear plans about how I'd like to get there. Then put together a path of learning development to get to that destination. Once you've got there, you then need to make sure that you keep checking that you are still at the required competence level. You can get to a point where your competence is starting to erode. You may not want to develop it, but you need to do that review to make sure that you are still at the level of competence that you would like to be at. If you're not, or you want to change direction, then identify an approach to bring you back to competence. So you can then start the cycle again and think about, okay, where are the gaps? How can I bring myself back to competence? So very straightforward, standard cyclical model. But the first thing you've got to do is you've got to think about measurement. What do I measure myself against? In my own case, it's Sophia. I've been a Sophia practitioner for many years. I've used this as part of BCS for a long time. It covers a huge range of skills in the IT domain, but it may not be right for everybody. It covers business strategy and architecture, project and change management, software development, service delivery and operations, security, IT learning development. There's a whole range of things in there. So if you're looking at a generalist approach, Sophia is great. But you might also want to be a specialist. And going back to looking at things that I've done, I've looked at things like the LPI Learning Capability Map, which the Learning Performance Institute use. That's about developing specialist skills in the domain of learning and development. The CISEC skills framework is very focused on cybersecurity. Cpd is for HR, learning development, really good competency framework there. You've got the APM, project management body of knowledge. There's so many different specialist competency frameworks. They all have a relationship back to Sophia. All of the ones I've listed there just as examples, I can also find in Sophia. But the depth that you might want for creating your own good CPD development path may not be sufficient in Sophia. You may want to go and find a framework that is more attuned with your own field. So then what resources can you use? Well, the usual approach is to go for things like books, knowledge sharing, events, professional networking. These are the things that we were just raising on the poll. They're a very good set of resources. And my personal favorites, I use a lot from the BCS bookshop. a lot of good topics there that relate to IT skills development, but also platforms like FutureLearn. FutureLearn is a great way to go and find information on domains that you don't know about and just explore and see if they are fields that you want to learn about. But the place I tend to come back to for myself is Sophia Plus, and going into the BCS website and looking at Sophia Plus. And what this gives you is some work activities, the knowledge and skills that support the particular skill that you're looking at, training activities, professional development activities, and qualifications. So these are very much in the first two domains of the CPD models I was talking about. But think about the work activities particularly can give you a guide into thinking, okay, so this might be a good CPD area for me to investigate further. And you might say, okay, you want to find out more about coding, then you might find a particular training course that relates to that. But the professional development activities, I've got to say, are the most useful things in here, because the PDAs give you guidance about other activities that can help support the development of a specific competence. And if you're lost for inspiration when you're looking at ideas for CPD, then this is a great place to go, just to see what is it that is recommended here in relation to a particular skill that I'm interested in. So it's a great starting point. Most other competence frameworks have similar tools where you can go into the tool, find the domain that you're interested in, start looking at the activities, and hopefully that will trigger off some ideas about CPD that's relevant. But then also think about this transformative model. A lot of frameworks are very good at saying, yes, go on a training course, but actually, how are you going to broaden that and get the experience? And can you actually take it that next step and look at some domains of action research to take that even further? And then as you come through the model, you've done your development. Always think about how you're going to demonstrate your competency. So you've done your initial measurement, you've assessed where your competency currently is, you've built yourself a pathway to where you'd like to get to, and then think about how you get recognized for that afterwards. Are you looking for some form of academic recognition, which might be apprenticeship completion, it might be an academic qualification, it might be a specific professional certification? They're all great ways to demonstrate competence. It might be professional recognition. So as you saw from the example at the beginning, membership of professional bodies, professional registration, so things like RIT Tech or Incorporated Engineer, or chartership, so Chartered IT Professional, Chartered Engineer, Chartered Manager, Chartered Project Professional. They're all really good ways of demonstrating competency. The other good way of demonstrating competency that I like is the growing domain of digital badges that I showed you earlier. It's a great way to say you've achieved a certain milestone in your own personal CPD development, and you want to see that you want to show that off so that you get recognition for the CPD that you've been undertaking. So a blended model that demonstrates competence. So CPD, well, what is it all about? What does good really look like? Well, for me, I sum it up in these terms. It's get current. This is about finding a professional framework that works for you, works for your employer. You may even have both. As I said, I like working to Sophia and find lots of inspiration from looking at Sophia. but that isn't something that I find in the workplace. So you might have different frameworks. And then get to competency and demonstrate it. And I find some of the biggest achievements is actually demonstrate the competency that you've achieved. And that is a really good way of being able to engage with a community of people that have also demonstrated the same that developed the same competencies. So specialist groups in BCS, really good way to keep current and keep current with the competency. And then most important thing is stay current. Cpd, good Cpd is about this. It's about staying current with your competencies. That's what it's all about. It's very simple, really. It's understanding what you want to be good at, understanding your competencies, being able to recognize what that competence is, and then being able to stay competent and be able to move forward. And staying competent means carrying out continuous Cpd. Cpd is part of every professional body for a good reason. All its meaning is, please stay current. We've recognized you've reached a certain level of professionalism. We've recognized you've reached a certain expertise in a domain. Please stay current. That's what Cpd is about. That's what good Cpd is. And that allows you to then demonstrate compliance with codes of conduct. And it just allows you to stay in the skills domain, staying current and demonstrating and engaging with a community of people who are learning alongside you. And final thing I just want to mention, there's a really good book on the subject that if you want to investigate further, CIPD, the Chartered Institute of Professional Personnel Development, has this book, Continuing Professional Development. Huge amount of tools, ideas on the topic of continuing professional development. If you're looking for ideas and guidance, it's a fantastic resource to use to help you think about how you can develop your Cpd. Some of the things that I've been talking about, some of the ideas have come from that book as well. So with that, I'd like to say thank you and open the floor up to questions. So Michelle, maybe you could help me with this session.
I have our first question is, sorry if I'm going to mispronounce this. It's Christiana Ribeiro. If you want, Christiana, we can unmute you if you'd like to ask the question yourself. But Christiana did actually ask, how is the best approach to update the Cpd? Best way to break down the topics to learn, develop?
I'm going to go back to what I said here. You need to find, sorry, let's find the right slide. Something like the Sophia Plus tool it's a great way of saying, okay, trying to navigate with the Sophia Plus browser online, you can look at a whole range of descriptions of different skills at different levels. And if you've not had a look at the tool, log into the BCS website if you're a BCS member. If you're not, then you can also log into go to the Sophia Foundation website and take a look at that. But find something that resonates with you, that looks like what you're interested in, and find a relevant description. So I like using this one for Prog 4 is a professional programmer. I work with a lot of professional programmers. If I'm looking for guidance and things that they can start working with, I'd go to the Prog 4 description and say, okay, what training is listed here? What professional development activities? What work activities? And that gives you an idea about what things are recommended for somebody with this competence who wants to stay current. So these are the ideas about what you can do to keep current with that particular skill. And then, so for BCS members, there's the Cpd tool that you can log your activity. Nearly every professional body has some form of Cpd logging tool. And in there, you just log the activities you've done. It may be attending a conference. It may be watching a video online. Most professional bodies are saying if you do an hour's Cpd a week, that's a good level of activity. So I find most weeks I will do an online training session, I'll attend a presentation, I'll come to a meeting like this, and then I'll just log that in my Cpd record to say, yeah, I've done another hour of Cpd, and over the year, number of activities builds up. So yes, you need to think about finding ideas for Cpd activity, which is where things like the Sphere Plus tool comes from, but also think about, have you got a relevant place to log it? And if not, just keep your own record. It's just good to have your own record of the learning you've undertaken. And certainly if we start doing this when we're doing qualifications, we think about what we're learning and what books we're reading, and we lose that skill once we go into professional practice and start doing things day to day. And we forget about just how much learning we are undertaking. So we should try and keep a record of that as we go. So
Following that
helps.
We have two related questions. So we've got Matthew Biggs has asked what Cpd recording tools are available, but Dave Donaghy asks any tips on how to record Cpd for audit, for example, without giving away valuable IP. Sometimes the details of the nature of the training might be trade secrets, etc.
Yes, I'll take the second one. The recording the Cpd, you don't need to disclose exactly what you've done. I think there's some good places like you can just keep a note to say I've undertaken training in a field that relates to an example like this, that competence area for professional programming. It's just the fact that you've undertaken something, so that for audit, it's easier to say, have I done some training? In fact, I might just go back to this model. Actually just saying, I've done 5 hours of training in a specific skill domain. So it's sufficient for Cpd logging purposes. Or I've done 2 hours of coaching with a colleague and around this topic. The depth of what you've done Cpd in isn't necessarily that's not the purpose of the audit. The audit is to make sure that you're actually conducting professional development activities. So you've been using these models. It isn't the depth of the model, it's not the specifics that are as important, because they're the things that relate to you. And so hopefully that helps. But I certainly try and think of it in these terms. I think of what's the model, what does it relate to, which competence area, am I developing something around privacy? So recently I've been looking at privacy implementation. So I might have done some training on privacy, I've looked at some professional standards on privacy, and I've engaged in some community of practice activities around privacy that I can record that with the number of hours I've spent on it. Sorry, Michelle, what was the first part of that?
So the first one was from Matthew. What Cpd recording tools are available? And I'm going to add my own additional one. Is like, what should you actually record?
So the tools that are available. BCS have a tool on the My BCS site that you can use, very straightforward, very simple. Just what type of learning have you done? Which Sphere skill does it relate to? quite freeform. And actually, I find some of the best Cpd logging tools I've seen are the ones that allow you to have a lot of flexibility to just say, I have done something and it relates to my professional development. Allocating it to one of these models of Cpd, I think it's the thing I found most helpful. Is to say, if you can think about what skill area you've been developing and how you've been doing the development and how long you've spent on that, that's enough for a recording purpose. So yeah, every professional body has its own Cpd logging mechanism. Personally, I find just a Word document is a fantastic way of doing it, because a lot of this can be just ad hoc. I found a fantastic paper this morning in an article that I saw tweeted, and I printed that off, and I'm going to be reading that tomorrow. And that's going to be probably an hour of Cpd for me tomorrow, learning about a new area of security. So the logging is important. Using a tool, not necessarily as important. It's just keep the records somewhere that you can know you can evidence them from.
Okay, next we have Richard Nelms. What are your thoughts about value of a certification earned by self-study over a period of months versus earned by going on a week's course ending with a certification exam?
They're both as good as each other. It's learning and it's certified. So a training course that you do in a week, if it suits, not everybody likes the discussion about learning styles these days, but actually it still has some relevance. If you're, the way you can absorb information is to do a 5-day course, to go into it in depth quickly and take a certification at the end, great, that works for some people really well. And personally, I actually like a really sort of slow form of learning where I can just do a little bit consistently. And I guess I learned that from really work. I worked for the Open University for a while, and actually everyone's just doing continuous learning, but it's in small pieces over a period of time. That gets you to the point where you can then do a certification. So it really comes down to personal preference. There isn't any right answer. They both work depending on how you learn and what your personal preferences are.
Oh, Colin Clark has asked a really interesting question. What model of CPD are we experiencing right now?
I would just say right now, I would say we are in the community of practice. We are doing mutual sharing amongst peers. So I'm sharing my personal experience of how I've approached CPD, how I've shared it with the BCS community in general, with the digital, the virtual festival of skills, and this is my community of practice, and we are undertaking the community of practice model.
And the last question that I think I can see, we do have 10 minutes, so if anybody would like to put another question in the questions, you're welcome to. Was another one from Dave. Is there enough value in having apprentices undertake and record CPD? Is the end of the apprenticeship the right point to start that?
You should be doing it all the way through an apprenticeship, because actually an apprenticeship is about skills development and competence development. What I call the current apprenticeship model is based on competence. The duties that are described in the apprenticeship frameworks are, by their nature, they are competence statements. I'm talking about some of the revised approach that's come out more recently. So it's based on the idea of duties. duties are effectively competencies. The whole point of the apprenticeship program is to develop the knowledge and skills and behaviours to allow you to get to current competence, and then keep current after, know how to keep current after that. So the endpoint assessment in an apprenticeship is just a competence assessment to see if you've reached competence. So you've done the first part of the plan do cycle, and then once you finish the apprenticeship, you should already be in the model of thinking about learning, continuous learning, and then you can carry on with your CPD from then on. And I think that's why I'm certainly in digital apprenticeships, and a number of those come with registration for example, the registered IT technician. And part of that RIT tech process is that you will carry on doing your CPD. So apprenticeships are all about competence development.
Okay, couple more have come through. You've got 8 minutes in which to answer them. So David Rutherford has asked, is there a push for more CPD when join BCS? He said, I joined in 2002, graduated 1982, would have liked this talk at that time's annual tick boxes to audit.
Like I said, it's one of the things that professional bodies vary in their approach, between being very upfront about talking about the need to do CPD, to the other end of the spectrum where the position is, well, you should just be doing it, and we're not going to remind you, but it's in your code of conduct. It's what you've signed up for. Just get on with it. I think what I'm finding more recently is there is now so much content available. There are so many good resources. Professional bodies as a whole are realizing that actually one of the things that is most important is to provide some guidance, some direction on CPD. Just talk the things I've talked about tonight about find a framework that's relevant, and then find some activities that help you apply that framework. It's sort of got lost in a lot of professional body thinking, but in the security field, you look at the CISP qualification, actually a really good model of how to do it really well, because you only maintain the CISP certification. So this is the one of the main security credentials. You only maintain that if you demonstrate actively the CPD that you've been doing. And it is at the point where a lot of people in the security field get jobs on the basis of having CISP. And if you lose that CISP certification because you haven't done your CPD, then you could potentially close doors to other jobs that you'd like to apply for. And just by putting a simple structure in place, they have a fantastic engagement with CPD. And I think it's beginning to resonate now with a lot of professional bodies. And so you see from my background, I'm involved in a number of different professional bodies. They're beginning to realize that actually CPD is really important, because that's the benefit of being a member, of being able to engage in communities of practice, having the standards, the transitional type of CPD activity is largely available through engagement with professional communities. And they've actually forgot that connection for a long time, and I think it's becoming more prominent. So hopefully you'll be seeing more from BCS and others about the importance for CPD and actually how to do CPD.
Okay, just to let everybody know, I am putting in Kevin's answers to people's questions in the question section and sharing them so that you are able to review them. Next question from John Nunn. Oh gosh, is there any good practice to align CPD to work-based objectives?
Yes, and actually I'll just skip forward again. In Sophia Plus particularly, the work activities are a really good way of helping you try and navigate that. So if you look at types of activities, so you could say, actually, I'm just using Prog 4 as an example, but okay, so somebody at this level, professional programmer, coding, codes, amends and refactors complex programs, right? Okay, so those are work activities. If you can find skills that describe the type of objectives that you've got, and also recognize that you might be moving to different frameworks. This is where my breadth of frameworks comes from. If your objectives are primarily around project management and you might actually want to go and have a look at what the APM are doing and look at the types of skills development that they're recommending and their CPD offerings, because that may be more relevant to your work objectives. You might want to go and find something like, in my case, part of doing the MBA was to be able to apply to become a chartered manager. So went through the chartership process, became a member of the Chartered Management Institute, and that's actually been a very, very useful source of CPD that relates specifically to my own personal work objectives. You won't necessarily find the answer in one place. You need to look at what domains am I interested in, but also what domains relate to my work objectives, my work activities. And you may find you've got two different frameworks that you can reference to generate ideas about what your CPD should be.
We are unfortunately almost out of time now.
I think thank you to everyone for joining in and asking those questions. I'm usually the one answering the question, asking the questions. So this is a very unusual reverse situation tonight. I have a sort of, part of my professional development, answering difficult questions from people attending community of practice sessions. But I hope you found something useful in the talk tonight. I think I did see one question where somebody was asking about email. I think it's on one of the slides. No, it's not. It used to be on one of my slides. If you go to...
Kevin, it's probably on the intro slides to the event. You as our chairperson, not as our speaker.
I usually put it it's on the slide about events, so yeah, but it's very easy. It's kevin.streeter@bcs.org. So I'll just go back there for spelling. But yeah, if you'd like to follow up afterwards, then please drop me an email. I'll drop it into the chat here as well. But very interested in the subject of CPD. Very happy to talk to anybody about it. And also, whilst I'm serving on council and trustee board, obviously, if you've got any recommendations about how BCS can be better at helping you support you in doing your CPD, then please let me know, and I'll take those forward with the various people in BCS. But I'd like to say thank you for joining tonight, I hope that's been a useful session, and we will post this up on the YouTube channel, and if you'd like to go back to this at any future date. So thank you very much for attending, and look forward to seeing you at one of our future events for the Learning Development Specialist Group.